And I thought with the agents right now, where they are in the process, it might be a little bit overwhelming. So the conversation might change just a tad, and focus more so on what our responsibilities are as real estate agents and what we perceive it to be when we start as a new agent or an agent that just gets lax. And what that is I think that most people perceive it to be is to list a house, market it, and get a contract. Don't you think that that's what most people's perception is? Right? Now, unfortunately, the toughest and the largest part of selling a property, being a real estate agent, is actually the part between the property going under contract and closing. All right. We get credit for the marketing, getting the contract, but guess what? We carry almost all the load of the point when it goes under the contract to the day we get to the closing table. There lies the problem. And the problem is this, is there are way more things going on between contract date and closing date that we get the blame for than it does to get it under contract. And it's one of those things where we get it under contract, everything's great, everything's happy, and then all the crap happens after that. And so I tell you what, if some agents are really good at that because of their very nature, they're detail oriented, they keep track of checklists, they go from step to step to step. And then there are folks that, maybe, I mean, it could be a combination, certainly, but I'm stereotyping very broadly, but you could have that very charismatic person that cares about the people more than the details, and that can be very problematic also. So I'm going to jump into, and this isn't, I'm going to jump into the point where a property goes under contract. So we think our job is done, right or not right? Okay. So then the question is, what is it that we have to do after that? And that's when the work really comes in. One thing that I need to advise you is that you need to have checklists. Now, I've got checklists out there. I don't have any specifically right now for EXP, but these are the type of checklists that you're going to have. And once I get them revised and made available to you, agents actually pay people to do this for them. And it's called a transaction coordinator. So that could be somebody who's actually out of state, someone who's in state. It could be somebody within your very office. That is also someone who, if you're on a team, a lot of times they'll have an administrative assistant who will take care of these type items. So again, for today, we're not necessarily going to try to instill every one of these steps, but what I want to most importantly instill in you is that, okay, I get it. I need to make sure these things happen so that at the end of the day, when my client closes, they collect their check or they buy a new house, they feel like, oh, I'm glad I hired Jenny and Boris and Levi and Renee. I want them to feel like this was a great thing. The problem is at the very end, if you had not mentioned they need to transfer their utilities and the utilities were disconnected rather than transferred, or you didn't have them bring a key or the remote controls, and that's just like the very minimum. That's the most minor items. It's going to put them.
Can you send us this list? Will you send us this list, or is this in your stuff?
After it's revised, Jenny.
Thank you.
Yeah. So there's so many items that have to happen. Again, I just want you to have in your head as a new agent is, okay, I need to ask somebody what I need to do, or I need to find a checklist just because it's under contract. So let's say we had a contract last night that won under contract. What's the first thing that we're going to do? Let's see here. This is the okay. This would be the list. This would be a listing closing. I guess it says right here, listing. I was reading through the items. The listing closing checklist. And this is the one I had when I was at my previous company. So it's going to be a little bit different. I've had these, of course, at every company I've been at. Some of them are going to be the same, some aren't. So the first thing you're going to do is, and hopefully you did this the night before closing, is you're going to do an estimate of closing. Now, you did an estimate of closing at the time that you listed the property, so the clients would know what kind of equity they had. You should, as a great agent, I'm not talking about, you should, as a great agent, do it again based on the price they're accepting. Now, that's where it's, becomes how you become a great salesperson, is to explain to them, you're not basing it on this, but I'm going to give you this information so that you know what you're accepting. Because it's quite different, right? Their net's quite different than what they're agreeing to. So you're going to have a closing statement. You're going to upload it. The next thing you do, you can see here, this says dot loop. Well, that would be the company, that'd be what we used before. So this would really be SkySlope. SkySlope. All right. And again, you don't need to write these down, but I just want you to know all the items that go into place. And then you're also going to recode it on MLS. You're going to recode it from active to contingent miscellaneous. You're going to email the purchase agreement only to the lender. You're not going to send the bill of sale, because lenders do not lend money on personal property. The bill of sale is personal property. So you're just going to send the purchase agreement, and that's it, not the disclosure. You're going to complete a green sheet. That's the old company again that I was talking about. But you would be completing your SkySlope for your commission. You're going to also order the home warranty, if there is one. You're going to check the contract for contingencies. So were there any items that the buyers agreed to do, and you're going to go make note of that. Now I'm talking about the listing side right now. All right. This again is kind of an old sheet. I apologize for that. Our contact management that I used to use was Top Producer. This would be similar to KV Core. So if you attended your closings on that, on your contact management software, then you would include it on there. Most likely you're probably going to do it on SkySlope. Earnest money, you're going to ensure that the earnest money is received. Okay, that's your responsibility. So you don't leave it up to the buyer. Now they're supposed to deliver it, right? But it's your responsibility, or your broker's responsibility, to make sure earnest money is deposited when? Somebody help me with that. What? Jenny?
The next business day, 24 hours.
Yes, the next banking business day. Yep, exactly. So it's not 24 hours or the next day, it's next banking business day. Yep. So if it's Friday night and Monday's a holiday, it'd be Tuesday, right? Okay. So now during this whole process, hopefully as you left it last night, right? I know this is going to be really kind of confusing, a lot of information, but anytime you leave your client or you talk to your client, you're always going to give them the very next step, right? Never leave them hanging. So you talk to them about accepting the offer. You're all happy. Thank you, Todd. You're the best real estate agent in the world. And then you're going to say, okay, thank you. Now this is the next step. Tomorrow I'm going to ensure that the earnest money is deposited. I'll send you a letter. I'll shoot you an email on that. The next step is the home inspection will be scheduled by the buyer. I'll let you know when that happens. Now, keep in mind, Mr. Seller, Mrs. Seller, you're going to need to keep the house clean pretty much till closing. All right. You can go ahead and pack things up, but especially the 2 times that people are going to come into your home are going to be the home inspection and the appraisal. You want those to be show ready. So that's the conversation I have when I leave them from that conversation is, once they think it's under contract, nobody's going to come look at it. But you want them to have that house as clean when an appraiser comes and a home inspector comes as when they sold it, right? Because they're presenting that, okay? So you're always going to give your client the next step. You're going to explain to them the home inspection. You're going to say, well, the next thing that's going to happen is there's going to be a home inspection within 10 days. I want you to keep your home clean so that it presents well to the home inspector. In addition to that, they'll be here for roughly 3 hours. And then the buyers will accompany at the very end of the home inspection. In as many years as I've done this, I've done probably everything wrong at some point. And if I haven't done it wrong so far, I'll probably do it wrong in the future. But there's nothing worse than people not knowing to keep their house clean. And then you tell them the home inspector is going to come there. And then the buyer comes and you forgot to tell them that the buyer was going to be there. And their house is a total wreck. Can you imagine? And then what's the first thing they do? They're going to call you and say, why didn't you tell me this? I see this happen quite often with new agents, even on my team. I don't want to throw Christian under the bus, but I guess I am. He's very direct and he takes care of his stuff. So he thinks everybody else does too. And so he always says, well, Dad, I told him, or we told him that. And I said, no, our job is to hold their hand literally until they close. Because selling a house is very disruptive. There's a lot of energy involved. It's, everything's in disarray. So we need to make sure that we're holding their hands all the way. We'll tell them once, we'll tell them twice, we'll tell them 3 times if we need be. So keep in mind that really is our job. Because can you imagine you going in to give blood or have a minor surgery, and you go in there for a minor surgery and they say, well, when was the last time you ate? And you said, well, shit, I went to the pancake house this morning. And they look at you and they go, why did you eat? And you're going to say, well, nobody told me not to, right? And then who are they going to blame? They're going to blame the doctor or the nurse or whoever it might be. So the same thing's here. It's our responsibility to make sure that they know. I had this thing happen last week. I had a lot that closed. The title company contacted them, and they live in California, and they're going to send the documents to them. I called and said, oh, they're going to be sending the documents. They said, well, we're on vacation in Florida. Vacation in Florida? I should have told them. I should have said, okay, this is what's going to happen. The title company is going to, a week ago or 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, or when we got the contract, I should have said, this is the deal. The title company is going to send you the documents you're going to sign there the day before closing. And somehow I must have missed it. And they're in Florida. They have no access to what they need to close. So we had to postpone it 3 or 4 days. In this case, it worked out okay because it was a lot. The buyer didn't need it. The seller didn't need it right away. We could close in 3 days. But can you imagine if that was a house and then there were 3 other properties, this contingent upon this selling, this contingent upon this selling, and they didn't know the process? That'd be terrible. So I hope you guys are kind of getting the gist of the conversation that I'm trying to portray. This might scare the crap out of some of you. All right. So you're going to go ahead and, on the seller side, it's not your responsibility to set up the home inspection. It's the buyer's agent, right? But if you haven't heard of when it's set up for inspection, you're going to want to call that agent and find out when the inspection is. Again, all these things happen all the time because most people don't have a checklist, or they don't use a checklist, and they have 3 or 4 closings at one time. And what happens is a home inspector will just show up. And actually within the last 6 months, I had the seller on one, and the home inspector just showed up because the buyer agent didn't verify the closing time. Now I could have reached out to the buyer, I suppose, and said, hey, when's that home inspection happening? So I could have made sure that it was covered. Yeah, it's a buyer's responsibility, or the buyer's agent, but it's for us to make sure it's right. So let's go back to the earnest money received. You're going to check on when the home inspection was scheduled. You will confirm a closing date. We are scheduling closing dates almost 3 weeks to a month before. 3 weeks, almost for sure. Now that's usually going to be done by the lender, but you're going to want to make sure that that's scheduled. Especially keep in mind if it shows up on the 15th or the last day of the month or the day before a big holiday, you're going to want to try to make sure that that lender gets it scheduled, because what happens is they get booked. And then the next thing you know, they're pushed off by a day or so. If my client has no preference for closing date, when I'm writing the contract, I'm going to try to close on a Thursday rather than a Friday. So if my client says, well, it doesn't really matter to us if we close, Monday through Thursday, we can get off of work, I'm going to try to close on Thursday, because Fridays are crazy at title companies. And so I want my client to close on Thursday when it's a little more calm. And then they've already worked on my client's file, which comes before Fridays, right? All stacked up. So that's just, that's just stuff you kind of learn over time. And then keep in mind, if my client wants to close on Friday, I'm going to close on Friday. Mondays, I don't care to close on either. It's a little bit tougher to do. All right. Let's see how many of these items. Confirm closing date time. If you have an acreage, these are some things that come in, and maybe someday you'll say, okay, we were on that Zoom call and Todd mentioned that, and I better make sure I do it. You need to read the propane percentage, because that's something that's prorated if you have an acreage or anything that's, propane, but that's, almost always acreages. You're always going to check in with your clients every 3 to 7 days, depending on what type of client you have. If they're very anxious or very detailed, you might want to check in with them every 3 days, even if there's nothing going on. Say everything looks like it's going to plan. We're waiting for the appraiser to come. They've already done the title work. We just need to sit tight. I'm going to usually have that on my schedule every week at 2 o'clock or whatever it might be, checking with my existing closings. So every Monday at 2 o'clock, that's what I do. If I have nothing to report, I'll just call and, leave that report or talk to them about it. But I'll always contact them. All right. You're going to verify your inspections are completed on the listing side. Your client most likely is going to have some repairs to be made, not in this market, but in most markets. If that's the case, you're going to usually try to help them with that. Right? You're going to let them know that those repairs need to be done as soon as possible, just to prevent anything's falling through the crack. Or keep in mind, some people wait till last week and then somebody has to order a part. And, that's kind of a big thing nowadays, is nobody has anything in stock. So you got to go ahead and have them take care of that right away. A lot of times you'll make recommendations. Verify the appraisal has been received. Now, when the appraisal happens, what's going to happen is the appraiser is going to call you usually the day before, and then you will call your seller and let them know that the appraiser would like to come look at their home tomorrow at 9 or noon or whatever time it is. And then it takes them roughly, almost never more than half an hour even. So a lot of times they're there from 15 minutes to 25 minutes. So they'll go in the property real quick, they'll measure, they'll look around, check it out, and then they'll take off. So again, you're going to let them know, please keep the house in presentable condition. Okay, after the appraiser is done, the home inspection and the appraisal is done, then you're going to code it pending. All right, what pending does is pending is going to take it off of, remember the active, like active new, active and active new means it's available, right? Active contingent miscellaneous, active contingent house sale, or active contingent house closing. At that point, it's still going to Zillow, and it's still being fed to Zillow and all the websites. Once you code it pending, then it'll come off of there. So that's up to you. I just closed 2 here this last week, and I did pending right before I closed it. So it's kind of up to you. Some brokers say that it's not pending until it actually closes, but I don't know. Okay, all these steps are just, I'm not going to go through each one, but the next most, because I'm trying to hit the most important, the next most important step is going to be to talk to your clients about what happens at closing. I call this the what happens next step. And some people have letters for each one of those. So your house is under contract, what happens next? And then that's going to say, home inspection is going to happen. They're going to be there for 3 hours. The buyer's going to meet them there, keep your house clean. Then the appraiser comes in. Sometimes I have a letter for that I send to my clients. And then once it goes under contract, I have another what happens next. It's usually, it has to do with the closing, what happens at closing. That's, again, I was looking for my sheet of paper here. That is, here we go. That gets to be the most energized time is when they actually have to move out, because they've got so many things going on, right? They might be getting ready for the new house. They, working out things with their last minute things with their lenders, they're packing, they're cleaning. It's just pure chaos. So you're going to prepare with them a few items here. One of the items you're going to do is let them know where closing is going to be and the time and the address. Okay. You're going to explain to them that they're going to bring their driver's license. And then they're going to bring like their keys or remote controls. Some agent just has them bring, sometimes I just have them bring one key and then leave the remote controls and key in the house. And I'll usually have them leave it there for walkthrough. Now, also, they need to know that there's going to be a walkthrough on the property. Now, the buyer's agent will contact you, or you will contact the buyer's agent, and you will say, when does your client want to do the walkthrough? Now, a walkthrough is a purpose of making sure the property is in the same condition or similar condition to when it was when the buyer purchased the home. All right. They're making sure that there were not any hidden items. They're making sure that it's clean. They're making sure that nothing has been damaged on the move out. They're making sure that the personal property is the same as what they agreed to. All right. And then in addition to that, they're going to make sure that the home inspection items, if they're agreed to be fixed, have been fixed. All right. So you're going to prepare your seller that those are the items that they're going to be looking for. So if you're a great agent, what you're going to do is you're going to send the bill of sale to them. You're going to send the home inspection items that they agreed to fix to them, so that they know that that's what's going to happen at the walkthrough. Now, this is where the circus needs to be orchestrated a little bit. And that is because the best time to do a walkthrough is usually the night before. So if there's something wrong, it can be negotiated. Or, and that is the best time. Unfortunately, for the sellers, it might not be the best time. So if their closing is Thursday at noon, they might say, well, we're going to pack our truck Wednesday evening, and then we're going to clean Thursday morning. Can you imagine? I mean, they're not the same. The sellers, you know, they want to stay in the house that night, so they don't have to, you know, go to a hotel. And then they want to have time in the morning maybe to clean. I'll tell you, if I can try to get my sellers out the night before, it's always best, because it always takes longer to move. Come on, you guys have moved, right? Always takes you longer to move, longer to clean, longer to pack. I mean, if you think it's going to take 2 hours, it's going to take 4, right? Or 6. So I'm going to try to prepare my sellers to hopefully be out of there the night before. And that's especially true if it's an 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock closing. All right. So you're going to want to coordinate that at least a week or week and a half in advance. You've already talked to your seller about that, you know, well in advance of that, you know, so that you can prepare them for it. So on the buyer side, you know, it's the same conversation. You're just on the other side of it. You're probably going to want to try to get in there the night before, so that if you find out there's something wrong, or it's not clean enough, or somebody damaged something, you have time to negotiate. Okay. Because at the closing table, it's really, really rough to get those items taken care of. You're going to make sure that your client has, no matter which site it's on, you're going to make sure that they've transferred their utilities, which usually means that you're supplying the names and the phone numbers. And then you're explaining to them to have the utility companies transfer. Usually now they know, that it's transfer, not disconnect. But sometimes if you get the wrong representative at Mid-America or Excel or something, they might not quite get it, or maybe your seller, your buyer didn't quite say it's for a sale. So they're going to need to transfer that. You'll have also, especially on the seller side, well, you'll do it on both sides, but most importantly on the seller side, you'll have gotten a copy of the settlement statement a couple days well, it almost never comes a couple days before, but at least a day before, you'll get the settlement statement. And you're going to verify that the items that you've negotiated, you're going to make sure the price is right. You're going to make sure on the seller side, the right commissions on there, the right sales taxes on there. You're going to make sure that if you've negotiated any items for payment, that's on there. So you're going to go ahead and make sure that all those items are taken care of. And then you're going to call your client and you're going to go ahead and review it with them. Now, why am I doing that as a real estate agent? Because I'm trying to make it as smooth as possible at the title company the next day. All right. And I want to prevent the fact that there's any misunderstanding or any errors, because I'd rather take care of it the night before with the seller and explain to them how it works than to be at the listing or the selling closing table and try to explain to them that there's sales tax on commission and that's what you agreed to, and that's what everybody pays, right? So I'm going to go ahead and do it then. it actually makes it go a lot quicker and of course more smoothly. Okay, you're going to do some things like advise them, of course, to transfer with their utilities. You know, they're going to transfer their mail. So they'll have to go to the post office to do that. You'll explain to them what a clean house means. At least good agents are going to. Now, what I'm giving you here is great agent work. I'm probably not even giving, this is not average. This is well above average. But you want everything to be right for your client, because no matter how minuscule it is of an error that happens, it's usually the real estate agent that's going to be at blame. And so you want to maintain that relationship for referrals for your clients for the future. You want them to just simply have a great experience, and you want to be able to help them again, right? And I said that those things have happened to me in the past. Yes, I've had plenty, some or plenty where things didn't go smoothly and it was awkward, felt bad. I couldn't recover. Next time they listed, my name wasn't on the listing. All right. So if you want to maintain an easier business, so you're not always out lead generating and you're getting repeat customers and someone who might just call and say, hey, we found a house, we want to list ours. Well, that's a lot easier than lead generating for 2 or 3, 4 weeks. All right. So I'd rather make sure this is right than to go back and have to lead generate. So you're going to explain to them evenly, you know, like mine says, the cleaning should be at a level of cleanliness that if you were renting, you would honestly expect your deposit back in full. And then I'm going to have some things on there like floor swept and mopped, garage swept, lights dusted, lawn mowed and trimmed, inside refrigerators, carpets vacuumed, lawn mowed, snow moved. Right? I'm going to put it all on there because, you know, there's times you show up as a buyer and they haven't mowed the lawn, and, you know, that's why you do the walkthroughs the night before. All right. And then I'm going to just for my business, I'm going to include some things that are just kind of helpful because they're expected to, you know, they shouldn't be leaving any gas or oil or paints unless it matches paints in the house and it's newer. But, you know, all those 20-year-old paint cans that have paint in there that's not even in the house, they should be removing that. So I'm going to put something in there about where they can take their hazardous waste in Sioux Falls. So those are the type items that you're going to cover from the time that property goes under contract to the time it closes. Right? Now that was the listing side. Now the buyer side is just the opposite of that, right? And do you think it's easier or harder?
I guess easier.
The buyer side a little easier?
Yeah.
Yeah? Harder? Okay, you're both right. Renee and Levi were shaking no. Boris, yeah. Okay, you're both right because it's a little bit tougher right away because as soon as it goes under contract, you're going to run and get a check. You're going to make sure it's deposited. You're going to, you are going to hopefully or help them order the home inspection and make sure that that's scheduled and in place. You're going to get them to the home inspection. You're going to negotiate the home inspection. You're going to communicate the negotiation, right? And then it's on the seller's place to fix. So, but a lot of that was yours, so it was a little bit tougher. You're gonna, I'm sorry, on the contract being sent to the lender, that's on the buyer's side. I think I've got that on the listing side, but that should be on your buyer's side because that's a buyer duty. Because you're the one, your buyer's the one who's borrowing it, right? So you're going to send that over to the lender without the bill of sale and without any of the disclosures. And then you're going to follow up on the appraisal. And then you don't have as much responsibility, I agree, Boris, when it gets to the very end moving part, closing day, because you're not, all you have to do is schedule a walkthrough, go, and then your responsibility will be to make sure that you have a list of the personal property. And then you'll have the addendum that you had from the home inspection. I take those actually with the disclosure and the purchase agreement to the walkthrough, right? Because what happens is when I don't, and I have not done it all the time, I'll admit, is they'll say, weren't they supposed to leave this, or weren't they supposed to leave this, or do this? And then I don't have my file with me and I can't remember. So I'm going to make sure that that is, I take that to the walkthrough. All right. And then there is a form that you would sign off on. A lot of agents don't do it, but there is a final walkthrough form that a buyer would go ahead and have them sign off. For your protection, I would have them do that to say that everything was okay. And then if there's something that wasn't okay, then you would go ahead and have them fill that out, sign it, and then you would give it to the listing agent that night. So let's say you got there and they had a throw rug in the middle of the floor, you know, on top of carpet or on top of wood. Actually, I've had this one happen, is they pull the rug up that's in a dining room that has a wood floor. And of course, it's been covered for, you know, since it was new, 6, 7, 8 years, and it's a different color. So under the rug, it's a little bit different color and sometimes very noticeable. And then that's an item. I mean, I know this is taped or recorded, but that sucks. I mean, anytime you have to negotiate before closing, it sucks because everybody's over it. Nobody's happy. I mean, I'm sorry, but that's their job, but nobody's happy anymore. They just want it to be over. Buyers want in their place, sellers want out, everybody's tired. So that's why I say the more that you can get handled before then and keep your client up to date as to what's going on, the better off everybody will be. So buyer side, I said the home inspection, negotiate home inspection, appraisal, you're going to make sure is okay. It's been ordered. You're going to, of course, at any time that your client or a vendor or somebody else enters or asks to enter the seller's home, you can't just send them over there. You need to verify it, even if the house is vacant. So you need to verify that with the listing agent, even if it's vacant, because it's not their house yet, right? It's not the buyer's house. So I think, let's see here. No, I'm not after the closing. Well, some agents provide, what's that book, The Love Languages? Has anybody heard of that? Talks about the different love languages, and one is like gift giving and gift receiving. Gift giving is not one of mine. So I have very seldom done closing gifts. Now, I know an agent that gives like everybody a closing gift. I mean, I've got, as a buyer or seller, she's a listing agent, I'm the buying agent, she gives you a little gift. That is something that's up to you. You'll see agents take gifts into their buyers and sellers into closing. I have not done that. I mean, I've done it before, but it's not something that I always do, or I shouldn't even say always. Probably less than 10% of the time. If I have a really close connection, or I feel like they needed something, or it was a really good, easy transaction. Otherwise, I feel like my service alone should be good enough, right? I'm sure your doctor, your attorney, nobody gives you gifts, just the sales industry. So you'll see that going on. You'll wonder, like, should I be doing that? That's up to you. And then, so after that, just the few of the just real quick steps are, at EXP, what you're going to do is you're going to take a copy of your settlement statement. You're going to take a copy of the check because the title companies know that they have to send those to Minneapolis. So you will not leave with a check. And then you'll upload those 2 items to SkySlope. And then if all your documentation is correct and it's been reviewed and you upload those 2 items, then you'll usually see payment in your checking account that you've supplied somewhere between, I've seen it happen as quick as 2 days, but now it's probably closer to 4 or 5 business days lately. So, and then that's usually the end of the transaction for most average agents. If you're a good agent, a great agent, you're going to call the next day and say, hey, how are things going? Even though you don't want to hear the bad stuff. And then in a week, you probably pick up the phone and say, how are things going? And then in a month, and then in 6 months. All right. What that does is it gives you an opportunity, if there's something wrong, is to help fix it. And then that's going to be more appreciated than if you just grab your check and you move on. So you should have something like that in place. All right. Okay. What did you get out of that conversation? Anybody get scared?
Very interesting. It's good to keep everything flowing good.
Yeah. I mean, the whole point, I guess, was, and I'm sure you got it because I said it enough, is that you still are the center of the transaction. You're going to be the center of it if it goes great. You're going to be the center of it if it goes bad. So you might as well get in the middle and make sure it's good. All right.
I appreciated your different things that you do and your perspective on things. So I appreciate that. And I have a quick question about the propane for an acreage I'm selling.
Yeah.
On the purchase agreement, it said that we would prorate it, but the seller now doesn't want to. Do I have to make that in writing or just tell Stewart Title not to do it?
The seller doesn't want to prorate it?
Yeah, he thinks it'd be a hassle to take a picture. I think he's just gonna give them whatever's left in the tank.
Oh. Yeah. Oh. I was like, I don't know why they wouldn't want to, but yeah, you could do an addendum just to make sure the title company, some of those you might get away with telling the title company that we're not going to prorate, but you're right, Angela. Some of those title companies are going to say, well, will you get us addendum to say that?
Thank you.
Yeah. And that is one of the things that gets missed very, very often. Is the proration. It either gets missed on the contract or it gets missed at the time of closing. Now, keep in mind, if you represent the seller, and I'll ask Levi, he always gets the acreage farm stuff. You have a 1,000 gallon tank, and the buyer said not to prorate. You represent the seller.
Mm-hmm.
And then you had the client just sign off on that. What does that mean at closing for the seller? If that tank is 80% full.
They're gonna get all of his paid gas.
Exactly.
Yeah.
$800. Well, I haven't seen $1 for a long time. I think I paid $1.16, $1.20 this last contract period. Have you been drying lately, Levi?
No, I haven't bought any yet this year.
Yeah. So yeah, you're right, Angela. So they're giving up, $850. Now, here's where that would land if that was Todd who missed it, is I would have my client call the propane company because they can take propane out of a tank and then have them pump it out. Because otherwise I'm, as an agent, probably gonna end up, because it was Levi and Levi said, hey, Todd, I didn't notice this said that I want that 800 gallons. I want my money for that 800 gallons. Well, then otherwise I'm going, oh shit, I didn't review the contract well enough. And I just had you sign off on it. So, I'm going to be, you see what I'm getting at?
Yep.
Yeah.
But if it's only 20%, maybe he feels like it's just not worth his time. So, ask him, is it 50% full? What's he think, how full it is? What's it worth to him? That way you get an idea whether you should do something with it or not.
Oh yeah. I'm just, definitely that'd be part of it. But I'm saying if it got to the point where it was, where they wanted their $850, then yeah. But that's, I do literally, 10 acreages a year, sometimes even more. So, it gets to the point where you remember it every time. But how much was that, Angela? How many, or you don't even know?
No, he didn't tell me, so I
Oh.
don't know. That is a good question. I'd be interested to know.
Yeah, next time you're out there, you probably could look maybe. Is that Alcester one?
No, it's Toronto.
Oh,
Alcester hasn't sold, Todd.
okay. All right, anything else?